Welcome you all to my class on HSC English first paper. Dear students, today I will explain lesson 4 of unit 6. The title of unit 6 is Adolescence. As you all know, you have finished the first 3 lessons, and in today's class I will explain lesson 4, which is the title of which is the story of Shilpi. And by this time we have finished 5 units, and we have also finished 3 lessons of unit 6. So by this time you have practiced question answers, flowchart, and multiple choice question answers and other things as well. And I also discussed summary in one of my classes. And now you can easily understand that when we read a passage, so what are the areas that we will focus on? And when I will explain this passage, obviously our focus will be on the techniques of learning summary, how to write summary, summarizing, and we will also focus on how to write question answers, answers of questions. Remember, each question carries 2 marks, and multiple choice question answers. And for multiple choice question answers, what you need to understand is obviously the synonym and antonym of words, different words that we are reading, and from the lesson. And at the same time, apart from knowing the synonyms and antonyms, you have to also try to extract the information available in the passage, and sometimes gauging some ideas. So these are the things necessary for getting full marks in multiple choice question answers. And in flowchart, I will explain after narrating this story, and after that I will explain the techniques of flowchart in today's class as well. And dear students, let's start our class on lesson 4, the story of Shilpi. And the story starts in this manner. It's a story of many girls. Shilpi represents many girls of rural girls, or girls of Bangladesh, and her story is not an exceptional one. This story, is comparable to hundreds and thousands of girls of our country. Shilpi was only 15 years old when she married in 2008. So Shilpi was married in 2008, and she was only 15 years old when she married. Marrying of daughters at an early age is a standard practice for many families living in rural Bangladesh. So that is exactly what I was saying at the beginning. Marrying of daughters, that means getting the daughters married off. That is basically the concern of the parents, to get their daughters married off. And marrying of daughters at an early age, so getting the daughters married off is at an early age is a practice. It's a practice, standard practice. That means it's a tradition for many families living in rural Bangladesh. So there are many families in rural Bangladesh who maintain this practice. After her wedding, Shilpi joined a local empowerment group that provides adolescent girls with the tools needed to gradually change cultural practices. So Shilpi joined a local empowerment group. So uh, she married at the age of 15, and her marriage is not an exceptional one, as I said earlier. And marrying of daughters at an early age is a common practice in the rural areas of Bangladesh. So Shilpi is not an exception. And what happened after her wedding, or what happens after the wedding of or marriage of such girls? Adolescent girls. Shilpi, this is not simply, marrying of daughters at an early age is not simply a threat for the body of the girls, not simply a threat for their physical condition, but a threat for their psychological condition as well. And it ruins their future. After her wedding, Shilpi joined a local empowerment group that provides adolescent girls with the tools needed to gradually change cultural practices, particularly those pertaining to early marriage and pregnancy. Now, When a girl is 15 years old, she is quite unaware of different issues related to health, related to cultural practices, and marriage and pregnancy. They are yet to understand the importance of many issues, health issues, pregnancy issues, childbirth issues. So that is why probably after the marriage she'll be joined the local empowerment group. You know, there are different NGOs working in the rural areas of Bangladesh. You all know that. So Shilpi joined a local empowerment group, and the role of the group or the function of the group is to provide adolescent girls with the tools needed to gradually change cultural practices. So, what is the role of that group? That group basically provides different types of tools necessary you know, for the changes, or cultural practices. So in rural areas, not only in rural areas, in every corner of your country, you will see that when a girl becomes adolescent and when she crosses the stage of adolescence, the society also has a kind of expectation from the girl. So this group also makes the girls understand the existing cultural practices of the society. And the group also makes them understand that how they can conform to the changes the society expects from them as they grow up. So that's exactly what cultural practices mean, particularly those pertaining to early marriage and pregnancy. So, the group also provides the knowledge regarding early marriage and pregnancy. Why? Because, Shilpi is only 15 years old. So, that is the reason, the group or the not NGO, it's not yet clear whether it's an NGO or not, but the group provides knowledge, information, suggestion regarding early marriage and pregnancy, and she'll be joined there. It was necessary for her. So that is one positive thing, that the girls have got the opportunity to join such groups even in the rural areas of Bangladesh. The group's activities include discussions on how to most effectively change behavior related to reproductive health as well as one-on-one counseling. So the group, the group provides different types of opportunities, and the group has different types of activities displaying in the rural area. But the focus is basically on how effectively change behavior related to reproductive health. So the main concern of the group is to make the girls understand, is to let the girls know how effectively they can change their behavior related to reproductive health, that means childbirth. So, they are only very adolescent girls, they are mere adolescent girls. So, these adolescent girls, they don't have any idea about reproductive health. And what is the function of the group? The group provides information, suggestion. Over here, what we see regarding the change in behavior of the girls when they give birth to children. So the girls come to understand the significance. The girls come to understand the risk of reproductive health. That means the health when a mother conceives. So this is Shilpi gets from the group. And not only that, one-on-one counseling. So the girls might be embarrassed. That is why there is the provision of one-on-one counseling. So one, trainer counsels one, girl. So that is the system, that is the strategy the group is maintaining, not to make the girls embarrassed. It also offers peer-to-peer support and life skills training that help adolescents say no to early marriage. So not only that, it also offers peer-to-peer support. Peer-to-peer support means there is a peer, say for example, parent peer can be, or one or a pair consisting of two persons can be. This peer is different from pair. So PAIR, that means, two persons. So peer-to-peer support doesn't mean two persons simply. It means that a group, it can consist of, basically it also consists of two, but it can be formed with three persons as well. And peer to one person can also do this thing. So when a person gives support to another person, and when the support is given, that person who receives the support, if he or she starts giving or passing the information to another person, if that person starts passing the information to another person, so this is basically the way peer support works, not peer support or peer work. This is peer-to-peer support. So when one peer is ready, this peer will provide the information to another person, and that person becomes also included in the peer, and that person also informs this to another person. So this is peer. So the group provides information to Shilpi probably, or Shilpi and Shilpi's husband probably, and the group will also ask them to share this with other newly married couples. So they become, I mean, Shilpi and Shilpi's husband become the peer. So they pass the information to another, couple, and that couple, if capable of passing the information to another couple, they also belong to the group, I mean peer. So that is how it continues. So what's the skills they are learning? They are learning the skills so that they can say no to early marriage. So for saying no to early marriage is very important, and the girls also need to know the skills for that. The empowerment group is one of more than 10,000 groups supported by some local non-government organizations working all over Bangladesh. So the empowerment group consisting of, the group is one of more than 10,000 groups supported. So there are 10,000 groups, and this group is one by some local non-government organizations. Who is running these groups? Who is financing this group? A non-government organization working all over Bangladesh. And these 10,000 groups are working all over Bangladesh, not in a particular, village or a town. These NGOs work through Canada's Adolescent Reproductive Health Project, which also aims to increase access to quality health services for adolescents. So, where does the NGO get the fund from? The NGO gets fund from Canada's Adolescent Reproductive Health Project. So, that is the project which is funding, the NGOs working in Bangladesh, and they have 10,000. They have formed 10,000 groups. So, that organization, Canada's Adolescent Reproductive Health Project, finances these 10,000 groups working in Bangladesh regarding reproductive health of girls, basically, and which also aims to increase access to quality health services for adolescents. You know, this group also helps to increase access to quality health services. So they also work on quality health. They also work on their suggestions regarding quality health, and they're basically focused on adolescents. I have already said. So the group's work is basically focused on adolescents, and they are dealing with different issues on adolescents, but particularly reproductive health, and trying to ensure quality health. During one of the group sessions, Shilpi came to understand the potentially harmful effects of early marriage and pregnancy. So they organize, they hold different sessions. I mean, the group holds different sessions. And in one of these sessions, Shilpi came to understand, Shilpi attends those sessions. And when she attended those sessions, in one of the sessions, she came to understand the harmful effects of marriage, early marriage obviously, and pregnancy. So when she learned the risk of early marriage and pregnancy, she was also probably alarmed. While maternal mortality rate in Bangladesh has declined by nearly 40% since 2001, maternal mortality rate means the death of the mothers at the time of childbirth, and it has declined. It's a positive sign, and Bangladesh has done a very tremendous job in this field regarding childbirth and declining maternal mortality rate and child mortality rate. In both cases, our indicator shows that we have done a great job. But still, we are yet to go miles by nearly 40%. So, since 2001, our maternal mortality rate has declined 40%. So, it's very positive. The rate remains high with 194 maternal deaths per 100,000. That means 1 lakh. Live births in 2010 dropping from 322 in 2001. Now, in 2001, 322 mothers died, according to the statistics, died out of 1 lakh. So that is the statistics. Maternal mortality rate, we are counting, we are comparing maternal mortality rate in different phases. Now, at first, the statistics comes, in 2001, 322 mothers died out of 1 lakh. In 2010, it dropped, and 194 mothers died out of 1 lakh. It further declined in 2015, and it became the figure stood at 143 in 1 lakh. Now you see that in 15 years it has dropped significantly from 322 to 143. So it's a great sign that we are doing very well on this particular issue, that the maternal mortality rate is declining in our country, and it was one of the goals, of you know our not SDG. There is the point, or there is the necessity of in decreasing or declining maternal mortality rate, child mortality rate, millennium development goal, MDG, and now we are in SDG. So the indicators in MDG, we have achieved many of them very successfully, and this is one of them. And the girls who get pregnant are at risk of serious health complications. So uh, those adolescent girls who become pregnant, they suffer from, or they experience different serious health complications. These include dangerous hemorrhage and fistula. So hemorrhage means internal bleeding, and fistula means also puncture of tissues. So since their body is not ready, since their physical condition, that adolescent means that they are not adult yet. So the body is also not adult yet. So the body is not also, the body itself is not ready to have another child in it. So naturally, these problems occur: internal hemorrhage, fistula, a painful internal injury caused by obstructed childbirth that commonly leads to serious maternal morbidities and social exclusions. So, a painful internal injury is caused. So, the girls suffer from painful internal injury, internal bleeding. And why? Because obstructed childbirth, the childbirth, is not easy, is not simple, is not smooth. It's obstructed, it's hindered, it's impeded. So the body suffers from different complications that commonly leads to serious maternal morbidities, and it's often leads to different types of serious maternal problems, maternal risks, and social exclusion. And when the girls suffer from this sort of problem, they become socially excluded. When Shilpi heard about those rakes, she invited her husband. So Shilpi came to know all these things when she joined different sessions organized by the group. So when Shilpi heard about those rakes, she invited her husband Rashid to discuss pregnancy with a counselor. So naturally, when Shilpi came to understand these rakes, she thought that it was wise to share these things with her husband. So she probably hesitated to share these things with her husband, and that's why she took her husband to discuss with a counselor regarding pregnancy issues. After hearing about the risks, Rashid agreed to delay having children for 5 years, despite pressures from his parents and neighbors to produce an offspring. When Rashid talked to a counselor, Rashid was also convinced, and that is why he decided to delay taking child for 5 years because Shilpi was still adolescent. She was 15 years old. And Rashid came to understand after a conversation with the counselor that Shilpi's health might be at risk if she gives birth a child at this age. So he was convinced to delay having children for 5 years. But there was pressure from the neighbors. There was pressure from parents because the parents started saying, the neighbors started saying that why don't you take children? And not only that, they also started criticizing, probably, as we see in our rural areas. They start criticizing. And there are different ways to criticize such a couple. Uh, Together, the couple met with a female health care provider who informed them about various family planning options available. And they also met with a female health care provider, and that health care provider also informed them about different family planning available family planning options. So, these things are, available even now, even in the rural areas of Bangladesh. So, Shilpi's mother-in-law and neighbors continued to pressurize the newlyweds. So that is the problem. They came to realize. I mean, Shilpi and Shilpi's husband Rashid, they came to realize the problems of childbirth at adolescent age. So they were convinced, but the mother-in-law was not convinced. I mean, Rashid's mother was not convinced. The neighbors were not convinced. And they continued to pressurize the newlyweds. They pressurized Shilpi and her husband so that they would take child. So this pressure continued. Deeply rooted cultural practices. And traditions caused a rift between Shilpi and Rashid and their extended family. So deeply rooted cultural practices means this is the culture of our rural area, that once a girl is married, the first function or role she has to play, that she has to give birth to a child, regardless of her age. So Shilpi is only 15 years age, and that is not the concern for the mother-in-law. She expects her daughter-in-law to produce an offspring. So, and the neighbors also expect the daughter-in-law, I mean the Shilpi, to produce an offspring, as if that is the only role that a girl has in the society of giving birth to children. And what happened that because of these cultural practices and because of these traditions, a breach, a misunderstanding started between Shilpi and Rashid uh, and their extended family. So at one side, Shilpi and Rashid stand, and on the other side, the extended family, I mean the father-in-law, the mother-in-law, and other family members. So this misunderstanding took place. And some of whose members insulted and criticized the couple. And the family members, some of the family members, they also criticized the couple, saying different things. That the language of criticism, it varies, but it's very insulting, it's very piercing, it's very painful for the newly wed couples, and they incurred this sort of criticism from the family members and from the neighbors probably as well. So unable to convince their close relative of the risks, Shilpi and Rashid returned to the counselor. So Shilpi and Rashid became helpless, and since they became helpless, they also went to the counselor again and requested the counselor that what they could do now. They took the help of a parent peer who has been trained to speak to other parents about adolescent issues. So this time, a parent peer was, involved, and a parent peer was assigned the responsibility to talk to the uh, family members of Shilpi and the neighbors as well, probably. And the parent pair means the husband and the wife is there. So this parent pair would come or would go to the house of Shilpi and would try to convince the family members. Shilpi's mother-in-law and neighbors eventually came to understand the harmful effects of early pregnancy on mother and child. Now, when this parent pair came and they explained the risks, potential risks regarding childbirth at the time of adolescence, the family members were convinced, and they came to understand the harmful effects of early pregnancy on mother and child. And since they were convinced, probably they stopped pressurizing the couple to produce a child. Today, the village no longer pressurizes the couple. Their parents and neighbors now support them and speak out against early marriage and pregnancy. So it's a very positive sign that today the village no longer pressurizes the couple, and Shilpi and Rashid are now free. Nobody is giving any pressure on them. Their parents and neighbors now support them and speak out against early marriage and pregnancy. And their parents, their neighbors, they support them now. And all they now speak out against early marriage and uh, pregnancy as well. So we see a positive trend, we see a positive change, in the life of Shilpi and Rashid and in the social atmosphere. So this positive thing is also expected from every corner of our society. Now, this passage, as I was telling at the beginning, this passage can be selected for question answers. There can be different types of questions on this passage. If I go to the beginning of the passage, uh, so at the beginning, the question can be something like this: that what about the practice of marriage in the local areas, or what about the practice of adolescent marriage in the local areas, and what kind of problems the adolescents suffer after uh, their marriage. Now, uh, what is the next question can be, what is the function of this uh, social group that you see in this passage? There can be another question like, what about the uh, pressure and a girl suffers, a girl experiences from the family members and neighbors to produce a child, and what kind of health risks a girl faces after and an adolescent girl faces after marriage. So how did Shilpi and Rashid convince the family members and the neighbors to delay having children? So what kind of change do you see in the society where Shilpi and Rashid live? So these are the very common type of questions that you can have from here. And regarding multiple choice questions, there can be different type of questions on multiple choice issues. Now, I said at the beginning that I want to share some ideas regarding flowchart. So by this time, uh, you have come to understand that what is a flowchart. Now, in today's class, I will just give you some ideas about flowchart, and next class I will make you practice those things. Now, flowchart is a kind of item in which you will be asked to provide 5 points on a particular issue or particular aspect. And one example will be given. And definitely this example will be taken from the passage, and you are also expected to provide information from the passage. So there are some rules for writing flowchart, that one example is given and you will write five more points. So in total it will be 6. And in the question paper, you will see a kind of box. I have not given it here. In the next class, when I will uh, focus completely on, flowchart, then I will show all those things. But in today's class, I just want to introduce flowchart to you. That what is flowchart? So in flowchart, you will be asked to provide 5 points, and you will be given an example. And what is very significant, that all the points have to be provided from the text. You are not supposed to use any point from beyond the text. This is one. Second thing, you have to answer in phrase. I repeat, you have to answer in phrase. So you should develop your ideas about phrase. So that is why I was telling you that I need a different class on flowchart. So in that class, I will again explain uh, different types of phrases and how to form phrases. So this is the second issue. That the first issue is you have to provide 5 more points. One is given, so you have to provide 5 more on the issue which is asked in the flowchart. Now you have to answer in phrases, not in clauses, not in sentences. If you answer in sentences, if you answer in clauses, you will not get marks. Thirdly, you have to maintain the chronology. It's flowchart. So you cannot provide the point that comes later at the beginning, and point that comes at the beginning you cannot insert it later. So you have to maintain a kind of chronology. You have to maintain a kind of sequence in your writing. That means when you provide the information. So that is also important. So and there is one more thing which is important. You have to look at the example. So the example is given from the passage, and it's always suggested that you will start providing points from the area after the example. Don't. It's always suggested not to pick up points before the text or sentences which come before the example. That means if the example comes in the third line of the passage, don't take points from first and second line. It's suggested. But if the situation is like this, that unless you take points from first and second line or the lines that come before the example, it's not possible for answer to answer. Then you can go, but it's not suggested. And I hope that you will get sufficient points uh, from the passage even after the example. So these are the issues you have to remember, so that we can start our discussion on flowchart in our next class, when I will discuss on flowchart alone, and I will show you that how to make flowchart and how we can do it effectively in an efficient way. So remember these points, that flowchart, in flowchart, one example is given in phrase. You have to provide 5 more examples, and you have to answer the flowchart in phrase, and you have to answer maintaining a kind of sequence, and you have to answer taking points from the text. So these are the things. Now, what was the question over here? And you have to also keep in your mind the question that write 5 points in the flowchart about Shilpi. So that is the question. You have to write points about Shilpi. The first one is done for you. So what is the first point? Married to Rashid at the age of 15. So there is another issue, that for example, this phrase is written in past participle. I mean, this is past participle phrase. So it's better to follow the phrase which is given in the example. That since the example of past participle phrase is given, it's better that you also follow past participle in your writing. But if it is not possible, no problem, go to other phrases, because sometimes it's not possible to maintain the phrase of the given example. So in that case, you can go to other phrases as well. So married to Rashid at the age of 15 is the example, and the question is on the life of Shilpi or on Shilpi. So if we go back to the text, and Shilpi was only 15 years old when she married Rashid. So the example comes in the first sentence. So we have to write on Shilpi. Remember this. Our points should be focused on Shilpi. So the next point can be Shilpi joined a local empowerment group. But remember, we are not supposed to answer in sentences or in clauses. So our answer will be like this: joining a local empowerment group. So that can be the answer. Or joined a local empowerment group. That can be the answer. So we are focused on Shilpi. We are focused on Shilpi's life. We are not going to going anywhere, but we have to write the points in phrases. So that's why I am not saying Shilpi joined a local empowerment group. I am saying joining a local empowerment group. And in the first, now in this slide, probably you are not going to any more point on Shilpi. So you have to go to the next slide and look over here. You also don't get any point on, oh, okay, in the last sentence. Shilpi came to understand the potentially harmful effects of early marriage and pregnancy. Remember, this is a sentence. So you cannot write the sentence. You can start like this: came to understand potentially, or Shilpi coming to understand potentially harmful effects of early marriage and pregnancy, or came to understand, or Shilpi coming to understand, or simply coming to understand the potentially harmful effects of early marriage and pregnancy. So that can be the answer. So I'm just discussing these things, that what can be the points on focused on Shilpi. So dear students, I just gave you the examples, and I will expect that you will do the homework. And in my next class, I will start from here. I will start, giving the answers of flowchart focused on Shilpi. But it's a kind of homework, and I hope that you will practice this. And in my next class, I will show you all the answers. But in today's class, I just gave you the hints, and I also gave you the ideas that how to write flowchart. So thank you very much for today's class, and I hope that you will attend the next class after doing the homework. Thank you.